The Dark History of Sugar and Its Effects on the Body and the Cardiovascular System by Amanda Owen. A quick overview. I'm going to introduce you to the topic, go over sugar production and usage in the United States, a dark history of sugar within the United States, a quick recap of a UNC research study, health effects of sugar, Health Association warnings of sugar, high fructose corn syrup, cardiovascular effects of high sugar intake, the use of sugar water in the NICU, a quick recap of the Fat Fiction film, and a personal review on reducing sugar intake. Dextrose, fructose, glucose, sucrose, and many more mean one thing: sugar. There are over 60 different names for sugar, which makes it easier to be hidden and added to the products that we use daily. Sugar can lead to multiple health problems, including weight gain, which leads to obesity, chronic inflammation, diabetes, and even cardiovascular disease. In the United States alone, we produce approximately 9 million tons of sugar in a year. This is a major crop and money producer for the United States. In the state of Louisiana alone, their sugar industry is worth approximately $3 billion and creates an estimated 16,400 jobs for the state. Most of the sugar produced within the United States stays within the United States, with another 2 to 3 million tons being imported each year. Americans are consuming approximately twice the recommended amount of sugar on the suggested 2,000 calorie a day diet, which means that Americans are now consuming approximately 77 pounds of sugar yearly. During the Middle Ages, sugar was once considered a rare and expensive spice, but now it is used daily instead of just on special occasions. Sugar has a long, dark history in the United States, as do many crops that have been harvested in the United States. In the 1700s, the population of enslaved people was growing rapidly, not just due to sugar production, but the production of other crops. This was particularly true in the state of Louisiana. The need for more workers as production increased led to around 12,570,000 humans being sold into the slave trade from Africa between 1501 and 1867. The death rate alone on these trips could reach up to 25%, with an estimated 1 to 2 million people being thrown overboard after death. Jumping forward, now we have crippling health conditions that are causing a major decline in the health of the population and costing billions in healthcare costs annually. Sugar has gone from a precious commodity to an overused additive in our diets. According to a University of North Carolina research study, they found that of the packaged foods and drinks that Americans have purchased in grocery stores, they found that approximately 60% of them have some form of added sugar. When they looked at every individual processed food in the store, 68% had added sugar. Some of these products were more obvious to have sugar than others, but not all of them. The list includes many sauces, soups, fruit juices, and even meat products. Even as early as 1942, the American Medical Association's Council on Food and Nutrition suggested that it would be in the best interest of the public's health for all practical means to be taken to limit the consumption of sugar in any form in which it fails to combine with the significant portions of other foods of high nutrition quality. And in the 1980s, the FDA started promoting that fat was worse than sugar causing more and more low-fat products to flood the market. The downside to this is that with the low fat comes higher sugar concentrations in the food. With higher sugar levels comes increased health problems that come with it. Health associations have been warning us for the past 80 years that added sugar can cause health problems. But yet, as a country and as a world, we continue to over add sugar to our daily diets. There are multiple health effects of sugar. The most common is diabetes, weight gain, and obesity, but the list goes on and on. High fructose corn syrup is one of the most common sugars used in sodas such as Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper. High fructose corn syrup may have negative effects on the liver, which could result in hepatic insulin resistance. When there is a high concentration rate of sugary sweetened drinks such as sodas, energy drinks, and sweet teas, people are at more risk of developing diabetes, hypertension, and cardiovascular disease. While having hypertension and diabetes already increases your risk of developing cardiovascular disease, the increased intake of sugar increases your chance of having a cardiac event that could be fatal. There are multiple ways that sugar affects the cardiovascular system, both directly and indirectly. Sugar can indirectly act on the cardiovascular system through weight gain and obesity and diabetes, which are both known causes of cardiovascular disease. In a more direct way, sugar affects the heart and the arteries by increasing blood pressure and increasing inflammation throughout the body. One of the coolest things that I have found out about sugar is that sugar water has been recommended since the 1990s to help infants that have been born prematurely during painful procedures in the neonatal intensive care unit or NICU. Sugar water placed on a pacifier shows a great benefit in reducing pain for these babies. Sugar water can be used during some painful procedures that these little babies undergo during their stay in the NICU, such as heel sticks, IVs, central lines, and even circumcision in older male babies. Oftentimes with these young preemies, they have a heightened sense of pain. A lot of times because their skin is so thin, they're not even supposed to be born yet, so their skin has not fully developed to the point where even a slight rub can actually hurt them and cause them physical pain. Now, some people may say, well, why not use narcotics on these babies? Well, that is for multiple reasons. Preemies are actually very prone to having something called A's and B's, apneas and Brady's. They're not supposed to be here yet, so they are still learning how to breathe and how things are supposed to work on their own without their mother's help. So babies will tend to have apneas and Brady's, which apneas are where you stop breathing, and Brady's are where their heart rate drops. Both of these can cause oxygen desaturations. When this happens, their oxygen levels also drop. These infants actually have a very hard time keeping their oxygen up if they're not already on a ventilator or something to assist them. Sometimes these babies are on CPAP or just on regular oxygen, so they are still needing help keeping their oxygen levels up. When you add narcotics into that situation, even at very small doses, it is going to increase the risk of those apneas and Brady's. And when that happens, these infants are going to need more help to get their oxygen level back up where it is supposed to be. Maybe even bagging them or even having to do CPR on them to get their levels back up where it needs to be. By using narcotics, you increase the risk of having to use something called Narcan. Narcan has been in the news a lot over the past several years. Narcan is an opioid antagonist. It is actually used to block the receptors that the narcotics attach to, causing a reverse in the effect of the drug. And again, using narcotics could cause more apneas and brady's for these already struggling babies, whereas the sugar water does not have those effects. And it has actually shown that using the sugar water helps reduce the risk of the apneas and brady's whenever they are getting these painful procedures. So, a quick recap of fat fiction. I actually remember learning the old food pyramid in school and thinking about how cool it was that I got to eat all this bread because I love bread, and being from the South, there was bread at every meal. And I remember thinking, oh, I get to have bread so much more now because that is, I'm supposed to have all these servings of bread each day. That couldn't have been further from the truth. And I am actually very happy to see that these doctors and nutritionists are actually standing up and saying, no, that's not correct. All of this was built on fiction and not fact. So I'm very happy to see that. And I hope that other people will actually watch this film and understand where they are coming from. A personal review on reducing my sugar intake. So I did this in two parts. The goal was to cut out sugar added drinks. My secondary challenge was to reduce bread and sugar added snacks because I knew that I could not cut them out completely. I was able to cut out the sugar added drinks, which was actually very difficult for me because that actually meant cutting out some of my caffeine intake. I'm a paramedic, I work 24-hour shifts. So whenever I am on shift or coming off shift and coming home to chase around a very wild toddler, sometimes those energy drinks are a lifesaver for me. But for that week, they were cut out. The secondary challenge for me was to reduce the bread and sugar added snacks. I knew that I would not be able to completely do this, but it was fun to kind of step back and try to cut some of them out. I did struggle towards the end of the week, um, with the reducing of breads and sugar added snacks because due to my cycle, I crave those things pretty heavily during that time. And with PCOS, I did not know when that was coming. But this was a good challenge for me with PCOS because at some point I may become insulin resistant. And it's good to know that I can actually do this should I have to. Um, I am still working on reducing some sugar intake. That's a challenge that I am working on for myself. So this was a good first step for me, actually. So sugar has a dark past and present in this country. Sugar has brought fortune to some and taken the lives of many others. There are multiple health organizations that have put out warnings for years and years. But unfortunately, those warnings tend to fall on deaf ears. I think the cravings are a huge thing for us. Sugar increases serotonin levels, which make us happy. So we have these feel good foods. So then we eat it, and then we eat some more because we want to feel happy again. So it's basically a drug. Sugar is basically a drug. And they keep warning us about it. And as a country and as a world, we are falling short in that aspect. Um, I do hope that sugar consumption will decrease and that we can move in a healthier direction. But with as much sugar as added to our diets, even without us even knowing, because like I said, there are over 60 different names for the word sugar. A lot of times we don't even know what those are.